Okay, so the next thing we're going to try to do is set down some rules for how to name alkyl halides. And so the halides that we're really going to be worrying about are fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and iodine. And once you start putting them onto alkanes, you have to change the name ever so slightly. So the fluorine ends up being called something slightly different. It's called a fluoro. The chlorine is referred to as a chloro. The bromine is bromo, and the iodine is iodo. And once we actually put any of the halides onto an alkane, the overall structure is really just named as a substituted alkane. And so what that implies is that, for example, with this molecule right here, the longest chain is still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's still going to have an ending suffix of the hept. And so since we refer to these guys as a substituted alkane, it's still going to be referred to as a heptane. So that's not really going to change. And so now all we really have to do is start naming the substituents. And the two substituents that we have are the bromo and the methyl. And so just like before, the same rules apply. We try to minimize the number of the first substituent. So we could either call the bromine the first substituent, and if that's the case, this would be position 2, or we could call the methyl as the first position, and if we wanted to number from the other side, that would be 1, 2, 3. And so we have the choice of either having bromo at 2 or methyl at 3, and since we're trying to minimize that number, the bromo wins out in this case. So this is going to end up being a 2 bromo, which means that this methyl is now at the 3, 4, 5, at the 5th position, which makes this a 5 methyl. So overall, the full name for this molecule would be 2-bromo-5-methyl heptane, and we definitely want to put the bromo in front and not the methyl in front, not because the bromo has the lower number, but because, remember, we order by alphabetical order. So bromo should come first, not because of number, but because of alphabetical order. So for this example, this is another alkyl halide, and so the only difference now is that we have a fluorine instead of a bromine, and we have an ethyl group potentially on this molecule. It turns out that this ethyl group is going to be our substituent because if we count from this position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we have 6 as a parent versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And definitely 6 is higher than 5, so hex is going to be our parent. Okay, so for this molecule, this is only slightly different. Let's try to do the exact same thing. So let's try to find the parent chain, which is going to again be the longest chain. So we could start counting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 is going to be our parent, which means we're going to have a suffix of hex. And since we name these alkyl halides like they're a substituted alkane, the ending to that is going to be an ane, so a hexane. So hexane is going to be our parent, which means now that we have to start numbering. And we can call this fluorine, so instead of calling it a fluorine, we're now going to call it a fluoro. So this is going to be our fluoro substituent, and we can try to put this at the 1 position. This seems kind of intuitive. 1 is obviously minimized. If we tried to count from the other end, 1, 2, 3, 4, the first substituent would come into contact would be the ethyl, and it would have to be in the 4 position, which is definitely a higher, less optimal number. So we're going to have a 1 fluoro, so 1 fluoro, and then the last thing we have to do is worry about this ethyl group right here. So this ethyl group would now be at the 2 on the 3 position, so we're going to have a 3 ethyl. So now I've made a mistake here. Remember in this last example we had a 2-bromo-5-methyl, and we said we put the bromo first because of the alphabetical ordering. And the same thing will go here. So if we had to put this molecule together and we wrote out this name, you would probably be understood, but it wouldn't be absolutely correct. The absolutely correct way to do this would again be to alphabetically order the substituents. So ethyl versus fluoro, that means ethyl has to come first in the naming. So the real way to name this molecule would be 3 ethyl, 1 fluoro, hexane. So this way is going to be the correct way to name this molecule, and this way up top is not going to be the correct way.